Hello everyone, and welcome to Fresh Master Channel. Today, we are going to have some story from Reddit. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. These simple clips mean a lot to the future of this channel.
My interest in off-roading started long before my family moved to Pasadena. As a kid, I spent summers on the dusty trails of Baja California, where my dad taught me how to handle tough terrain in our old Ford Bronco. Over the years, my love for rugged landscapes only grew. When we moved to Southern California, I met Carol, the perfect partner who shared my passion for adventure and had the same grit for the difficult trails we faced. Together, we built friendships with people who loved the thrill of the ride as much as we did. For us, off-roading wasn't just about overcoming nature's obstacles. It reflected how we approached life's challenges. Carol and I built a life together, balancing family and careers while making time for the adventures that kept us energized. Ted and Alice became our closest companions in these trips. We weren't soulmates, but the experiences we shared created a bond that felt strong. Our plans for the upcoming Memorial Day weekend were no exception, a mix of nature, relaxation, and the unpredictability that always came when the four of us hit the trails. Do you really think that massive SUV of yours can handle those climbs? It's too bulky for the narrow paths, I joked with Ted, setting my beer down. Sure, you need the legroom with your height, but trust me, I wouldn't try turkey track in that thing. Even my old Land Cruiser, which weighs half as much, barely made it. The late afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, casting a warm glow over the pool area. It was another scorching day in Pasadena, the smog thickening as the mountains stood hazily in the distance. As we sat by Ted and Alice's pool, we enjoyed watching our wives swim, glad they weren't bickering for once. Hey, they told me this thing can go anywhere, and I'm going to test that, Ted said, sipping his Toots Chief malt and belching loudly. Yeah, I'm ready for turkey track. I don't care about all those horror stories. More power. The worst road in Anza Borrego Desert State Park between San Diego and the Salton Sea is called Turkey Track because its climbs look like a bird's footprint. The steepest of these routes is full of giant holes and sheer drop-offs. Often, when crawling uphill, only 3 wheels touch the ground. My cautious wife never likes these places and usually gets out of the car, waiting until I manage to get through safely. Luckily, I haven't fallen into an abyss yet. Anza Borrego is not the best place to test drive that thing. There's no way you'll fit through Fat Man in a narrow place. Even a Suzuki Samurai barely squeezes through that gap between the rocks. I took another sip of Wicked Ale, hoping he'd consider my advice. Ted cracked open another Toots Chief and took a big gulp. All right, genius, where do you suggest we go for Memorial Day? And don't say Angelic Cross. That's the weaklings route, full of jeeps, samurais, and soldiers. Ted's wife, Alice, a skilled circuit engineer and one of my respected colleagues, floated over to us lazily. If you've got a problem with weaklings, Teddy, that's your fault. She shot me a pale, freckled grin and licked her lips playfully. My wife, Carol, naturally dark-skinned, swam over too. Hey, give him a break, honey. Alice, he's just being a guy. I think motors are cool too, even the ones you work with. Carol turned toward Ted and then me. So, Bobby, what trail do you suggest? Something not too boring for the holiday, right? I thought for a moment, trying to calm Ted down. I've got the perfect spot. East of Palm Springs, there are some great trails leading to abandoned mines in the Chuckwalla Mountains. They're challenging enough to be fun, but nothing that'll liquidate us. I took another sip of beer. Most of the area is managed by the BLM as wilderness, but we can stick to existing roads and dry riverbeds to Chuckwalla. Sounds good, Alice said. Yeah, it's really beautiful out there, Carol added. Agreement between these two couples by the pool. We're Bob and Carol. They're Ted and Alice. We're neighbors and friends here in Pasadena. Alice and I work together. Our families often caravan in our SUVs. Our kids play together, go to the same school. And right now, on this sticky Sunday afternoon, they're enjoying time at Carol's parents' place in Burbank, where we're raising the next generation of tough Valley girls. But are we best friends? Not really. We're more like close acquaintances with shared interests, like their pool. We get along well enough, which is nice because making new friends is tough. If only Carol weren't so bossy and Ted more reliable. Meanwhile, this afternoon and evening were our time. There's little privacy in this suburban neighborhood. The Homeowners Association doesn't allow high fences. Skinny dipping is only an option after dark, and even then you have to watch out for nosy neighbors. Damn prudes. So, we spent our time relaxing, joking, flirting, getting a bit drunk, talking nonsense, and making plans. Ted and I argued about our upcoming trip. I'm not sure the women had any plans beyond coming along, looking good, and poking fun at each other at every opportunity. As usual, we planned a 4-day getaway for Memorial Day. Would it be fun? Ted just swapped his 4X4 4Runner for a new Sequoia last week and was eager to put it to the test. Like he even knew what that meant. Though Ted was a typical real estate broker when it came to driving his SUV, he suffered from an overconfidence problem. Honestly, the Angel's Cross would suit him better, but his ego wouldn't allow it. At least he still remembered the first aid skills he learned in the Army, so he wasn't completely useless on our trips. Our boozy poolside gatherings often led to debates. Who would bring what and how much? Who would be responsible for food and gear? Then there were the constant personality clashes. I'm focused and detail-oriented, while Ted is laid back and carefree. Carol is strong-willed, and Alice doesn't take crap from anyone. "I'm not taking orders from you, Carol. Save that for your staff," Alice snapped. Carol naturally took charge whenever she could, which was why she ran her media marketing agency. Carol's leadership came from her heritage. Carolina Carrillo Ortega descended from a Spanish family that settled in California before it became part of Mexico. Her ancestors were there when Father Serra founded the missions in the 1700s. Families like hers cultivate a certain arrogance. It didn't help that Carol's parents were Hollywood studio executives, and she grew up as a privileged valley girl. She skillfully uses her old social circle, Valgal, for networking and business. I love her, but she drives me crazy, and everyone else too. Guys are mesmerized by her stunning body until she starts giving orders. Then you better not cross her. My roots are almost as high-ranking. I'm Roberto Pico Ortega, and my family once owned much of what's now Los Angeles, before the gringos took it. But I won't be the lizard bragging that his grandfather was a T-Rex. "It's dark now, everyone. Swimsuits off," Carol called, always eager to flaunt her lean, sun-kissed body. Alice hesitated, but quickly stripped down. I glanced at her freckled bosoms, and Ted and I followed suit, our shorts joining the pile. We lounged back as Alice settled on Ted's lap and Carol perched on my hips, catching my gaze. "So, Bobby, are we swimming some more, or are you going to have sex with me again?" "Again?" I teased, pulling her in for a kiss. "Yes, again, but first, you need to get wet." Her executive tone left no room for argument. She grabbed my hand and yanked me into the pool. We splashed in awkwardly, Ted laughing until Alice dunked him with a jujitsu move. The darkness made the pool a safe space for roughhousing. I was pushed aside as Ted and Alice ganged up on Carol. I returned to give Alice a playful slap on the behind, expecting Ted to do the same with Carol. That was about as far as our mischief went, even with the Chardonnay flowing, maybe the occasional accidental pinch, but no real boundaries crossed. Eventually, we climbed out of the pool, settling back into the loungers. Carol, energized, straddled me as our bodies drew close. I glanced over to see Alice kneeling beside Ted, clearly inspired by what we were doing. Carol noticed too, and accepted the challenge, saying, "We can do better." She shifted, intensifying the moment between us. Meanwhile, Ted and Alice followed suit with equal enthusiasm. Though Ted and I weren't as young as we used to be, and our stamina didn't recover as quickly, this added a new level of intrigue. The women didn't seem to mind. The slower the pace, the more enjoyable it became. Suddenly, the alarm went off. Time to get dressed and pick up the kids. Another work week was upon us. Alice and I carpooled to work at Lunadyne, a small aerospace company near Caltech and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. My BMW crawled along I-210 at a whopping 10 miles per hour, emissions reaching 15 in the faster sections. God, I hate Monday mornings. As Lunadyne's chief exhaust engineer, I developed jet and rocket exhaust systems. Alice, a brilliant circuit designer, creates electronic control prototypes. She's a smart techie, a strong hiker, and an impressive redhead, but her fiery temper and lack of social skills hold her back. She's not tough enough to be a boss. There's an old engineering joke. Those who can, design, those who can't, manage. Alice and I were housemates in a way. We worked together, had lunch together, went on work trips together, and, yes, even skinny dipped together. We played around with our partners, but nothing serious ever happened between us. Poolside fun wasn't an affair, right? I mean, if we were both there, does it even count? Our conversations during these rides were typically about work, team projects, the usual political and social issues, and of course, past and future off-roading adventures. We stuck to safe topics. "Are you ready for summer?" Alice asked, sipping her mocha. "Do you really think Ted's up for the challenge in Anza Borrego? Not in the world, but in the Chuckwalla Mountains?" The roads are rough, but they're in much better condition. They can handle the Sequoia's weight. Ted had been fixated on trading our old 4Runner for something new, and now he had this massive Sequoia, bought with my money, and was eager to try it out. It was like he needed off-roading to prove his masculinity, as if it somehow validated him. But nature wasn't really his thing. Alice took another sip of her mocha. Alice and I both had scouting experiences growing up. We learned survival and improvisation skills. We're engineers, after all. We build things. Carol and Ted, on the other hand, have always been privileged city folk with a let someone else do it attitude. That's why they run their offices and delegate the hard work. I'm no cowboy, though. I just bought a hat. I sang, Ted drives rough roads to prove he's a tough guy. He needs a tough car, so he buys one. But that's not enough. I switched to another tune. But he doesn't have cowboy lips. Alice giggled. Yeah, and you've got those caballero lips. Same thing. But look where that's gotten you. She pouted playfully at me. Where I ended up with my Caroline, the girl of my dreams. Not a bad deal, I laughed. Alice sighed. Come on, spare me. Sure, she's got an amazing body, but how do you put up with that bossy attitude? She thinks she's the queen of Pasadena, always ordering me around. Take a deep breath. Inhale, hold, exhale, I said, trying to keep things calm. Oh, screw you, she muttered, expressionless. I only have to deal with her occasionally. You're stuck with her all the time. I'm not complaining. I bumped the air conditioner up by 1 degree. The day was heating up. Hey, am I annoying you with my useless husband? Ted's firm had his name on it, but he barely did any real work. Officially a broker, his staff kept the office running while he played golf or squash with clients, or did other so-called management duties. Yeah, well, kind of, Alice admitted. Ted does lead a pretty cushy life, but he's great with the kids and helps with errands. Maybe he's insecure because I'm the primary breadwinner. You men have fragile egos. All right, I replied. Let's call a truce. How's that? We steered the conversation back into the safe zone. Work. That early summer week before Memorial Day 2001 was more about trip planning than actual work. Sure, we worked hard, but most of it was organizing the trip. Alice and I made gear lists and sent our partners shopping for what we needed. Of course, they probably sent their staff to do the actual shopping. That's what employees are for, right? Our kids, as usual, ignored us, but we still made them pitch in. I'll go through the checklist one more time, Dolly, I said to my youngest daughter, Dolores. Why do I have to? She whined. I've got homework, and you'll do it right after we're done here. Sometimes I think my daughters are socially clueless. They still haven't figured out how to manipulate their parents. What's wrong with kids today? But you always make me do everything, my little drama queen complained. Why can't Roshi do it? Because Rosalita is helping your mom with her list. We're equal opportunity oppressors, you know. Now quit whining and start with the camping gear. Tent? I don't care about your tent right now. Just check it, I said firmly. The sooner we finish, the sooner you can do your homework, watch TV, play games, and call your friends to complain about how we make your life so hard. But first, the tent, I insisted. All right, it's the Sierra Designs tent, the one that smells like moldy nylon, junk. Watch your language. Okay, poles, pegs, rainfly, and bedding. Yeah, all here. A dozen metal pegs, none of the poles look bent. Everything's good. We went through the gear checklist point by point. Camping supplies, tools, spare parts, and everything we'd need for the Land Cruiser. Carol and Roshi were probably doing the same with the kitchen gear, medical kit, clothing, and other necessities. I personally double-checked the car's electronics. Alice was just as meticulous with her planning. And I'm sure her kids, Suzanne and Carrie, were going through the same routine. Ted, of course, would pretend to check out his new 4X4, but would avoid any real work. He'd leave the hard stuff to others, the easy way out. The kids would be staying with Carol's parents, taking all the pets with them. No dogs, cats, ferrets, or iguanas on this trip. Each couple brought their own tents, bedding, folding tables, chairs, food, plenty of water, and extra gas. Tools and portable VHF radios were our backup to cell phones, since reception would be spotty in the steep, narrow canyons, and radios were free to use. As each checkpoint was completed, non-perishable items were packed up. Careful organization, engineer style, makes adventure survivable. It's all about paying attention to reality. Reality. What is it, really? As the old hippie says, reality is a crutch. If you've got a good imagination, reality is like a clutch. A friend of mine drives an old van with a failing gearbox. His dashboard has a message. Reality is what's left when you stop believing in it. It's simple. Does gravity vanish if you don't believe in it? Reality is what bites you in the bum. If it affects you, it's real. Otherwise, why worry about it? I plan off-road trips the same way I design turbos and exhaust systems. Reality bites, and it can be dangerous. The packing and checking went smoothly over the next few days. By Thursday night, we were loaded up and ready. We'd all agreed to cut work short on Friday for an early start. We checked in at our offices, skimmed over some paperwork, grabbed a quick lunch, and left. It was easy for Carol and Ted. They just gave orders. Alice and I had no trouble either, as we were the stars at Lunadyne. We stepped right into summer. Our little caravan set off just after noon, following the usual domestic squabbles. Ted and Carol both deserve PETA tattoos on their foreheads. They can be real pains, definitely boring. It was early enough that we didn't have to slog through miles of traffic, making it to the outskirts of San Bernardino and Redlands with relative ease. Just a couple of drivers to yell at, and a few trucks that tried to liquidate us. Carol was busy typing away on her little Sony Vaio as we drove, chatting about life, the kids, their school, and our friends. Just small talk. "This is the Little Mac project," Carol said, tapping on her keyboard. "That's what we call it. We've partnered with the California Macadamia Council to create a marketing plan to make macadamias the world's most popular nut. Peanuts are down, but almonds and pistachios are up. It's a competitive market." "You've got to be kidding, Toy," I joked. She gave me a half smile. Yeah, you've heard this before." "Macadamia? Really? Do they even grow in California?" "They do, but not a lot. Most come from Australia, Hawaii, and Central America. The council figures that increasing demand for macadamias from anywhere will still help California farmers. That's where we come in. I'm just brainstorming ideas." Carol typed some more. "Sure, they're tasty, but there's plenty of other things that don't sell well either." I swerved slightly to get around a slow pickup truck. "It's more than just snack nuts. They make macadamia pasta flour. You've got to try the honey macadamia pancakes. Poppy milk, macadamia oil, macadamia cheese, though that last one's not great. Macadamia candy? Yeah, all kinds of stuff, but no one really knows about it." "Exactly. That's our job, to build awareness. So are you working on an advertising campaign?" "This isn't your usual thing." "No, not traditional advertising. The Macadamia Council wanted dumb slogans like Mac Snack Attack or excited about Macs for TV and billboards. This is the 21st century. Instead, we're running a viral internet campaign. Friendly blogs, infiltrating forums, recipe clubs, idea sessions. No spam, no garbage. It's going to feel spontaneous, organic, with only an online presence." "Has this been done before?" "Some have tried. We track their attempts. The best part is, it's dirt cheap. No expensive media buys, no mass targeting. It's all about creating an atmosphere where macadamias become a staple on every shopping list." "And how do you create an atmosphere?" I glanced at the thick smog around us, imagining a nut-flavored fog. "There are millions of ways, and we can test them all for almost nothing. Each strategy gets a trial. Change a few words, measure the response. What works, we keep. What doesn't, we toss. Our software automates posts that feel personal. The AI reads and responds or calls for human intervention when needed. Those are the only real costs, and we outsource that. It's a smart system." Carol smiled, clearly proud of her plan. She tapped away again when we were interrupted. Carol picked up the VHF radio from the dashboard. "Say that again, Alice. I didn't catch it." "I said we could use a break. Let's stop at the dinosaurs in Cabazon." "Got it. We'll take the Cabazon exit and meet under the Brontosaurus." It was actually a 150-foot-long concrete apatosaurus, but everyone calls it a Brontosaurus. I parked our beige Land Cruiser by the restrooms. Ted's red Sequoia pulled up behind us. The women hurried to the bathrooms while Ted and I stretched out, gazing at the dinosaurs, Big Denny and the towering T-Rex. Cabazon, nestled between the San Bernardino and San Jacinto mountain ranges, is practically a village, dominated by these roadside dinosaurs until the Morongo Cahuilla Indians built a casino resort nearby. "I'll never forget the first time I stopped here with Alice," Ted said, sipping his soda and waving at Denny. "It was before we got married. I took her to a real estate conference in Palm Springs. On the way, she needed a break, just like today. Afterward, we climbed the stairs into the gift shop inside Denny's belly. There was no one there." Ted gestured again at the dinosaur. "Alice was hot, very hot. We'd been fooling around in the car, so she took off her underwear, and we had Zex right inside the dinosaur." He laughed. "Now there's a creationist museum here. These guys are idiots, but I love selling to them. Fanatical fundamentalists will believe anything. Ted could be annoying. Alice emerged from the restroom looking slightly annoyed but not overly angry. Carol came out a moment later, walking more slowly. I figured their argument inside hadn't been too bad. Why did I assume they fought? Because they always did. Two alpha females, neither willing to submit. We got back into our cars, and I took the lead again. Carol started to speak. I raised my hand. I don't want to hear it. Just stop picking on Alice. Carol opened her mouth, but I waved her off. Number just no. She retreated back to her Vio, sulking. The sun was high as we crossed Whitewater Pass, a 2-mile gap in the coastal mountains, and descended past scorching Palm Springs into the Colorado desert, dropping below sea level. We passed Desert Hot Springs, Palm Desert, and Indio, stopping for gas and date milkshakes. Then, we climbed back above sea level, moving through the Chuckwalla Valley, heading south toward the fork in the road before Desert Center. And here we were. We stopped at a gravel crossing in the middle of a barren landscape. Everyone got out to stretch, breathe in some dusty summer air, and take stock of the situation. I waved Ted over and spread the map on the hood of my Land Cruiser. He walked over with a dramatic but completely unnecessary swagger. "Where's the trail, Shamiz Abe?" Ted asked, closing his eyes and pretending to assess the direction. The sun was behind us. That way. I pointed southeast and grinned. Ted either didn't know or didn't care that Shamiz meant idiot in Spanish. I tapped the map. "We'll take the Red Cloud Mine Trail into the Chuckwalla Mountains. The trail beyond the mine is tough but doable, and I know a good camping spot. We've still got 3 or 4 hours of daylight, so the sooner we settle in tonight, the earlier we can get started tomorrow." "Great, I brought some smoke," Ted said, looking way too excited. "Yeah, a real party," Alice responded with a slight eye roll. "We engineers smoked a little to unwind, sure. But our executive partners? They smoked more for the thrill. I just hoped Ted wouldn't be too foggy in the morning when we hit the rough trails." We climbed back into our cars and continued driving deeper into the desert mountains. I led the way, steering us past prickly ocotillos, chalas, and grand prickly pear cacti weaving through green creosote and yucca bushes, and ascending a steep trail through narrow gorges. Eventually, we reached a wide, flat spot where Carol and I had camped before. I parked near an old fire pit with Ted right behind me. I chose this spot based on the real estate mantra: location, location, location. It was open, but private. Nobody could sneak up on us. Privacy was important, but more so, it had a direct line of sight to the cell tower at Chuckwalla Pass. We called home to let everyone know we'd arrived safely. "This is it! It's starting," Carol shouted as she leapt out of the Land Cruiser. "We're back in nature, so let's be naturists." She immediately pulled off her shorts and underwear over her hiking boots and tossed off her bikini top. "God, this feels amazing." And she looked amazing, too. I stripped down to just my climbing boots, and Ted quickly followed, his eyes lingering on Carol. Alice grimaced slightly, but soon joined in, shedding her clothes. Her pale, freckled skin wasn't made for much direct sun, but the evening light was soft. I won't lie, I stole a few glances at our lovely ladies. We set up our quick open tents, laid out tables and chairs, and organized the minimal kitchen, all while playfully swatting each other's bare backsides. The camp came together quickly. Carol turned on some salsa music from her boombox and started dancing, her tan bosoms bouncing with the beat. I joined her, moving to the rhythm. Meanwhile, Ted pulled out a box full of wine, cocktails, and beer, and Alice passed out drinks, dancing around Ted, her straight hair flowing like cherry cider. As the sun dipped behind the western mountains, we tumbled and laughed like kids, but the cool breeze eventually forced us to put on light shirts. Ted and Alice whipped up a hot dinner while Carol and I built a fire with compressed wood, not local vegetation. We spent the evening eating, drinking, joking, and singing around the fire, before crawling into our tents for a night filled with loud zeks and even louder snoring. It was a good night. The cool desert morning didn't invite any undressed frolicking. We all emerged from the tents in our tracksuits, smiling groggily. Alice lit the Coleman stove to boil water for Mexican mocha, instant coffee, cocoa, and tequila, while Ted made us some hearty burritos. Breakfast of champions. We sat by the morning fire, talking about business and the day ahead. Carol's chair was next to mine. "Last night was quite the race," she teased, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "Where are we headed today, Bobby?" I chuckled. "You're the one who does all the racing. I'm just your pony, and today we'll ride into the sunset or something." Alice put her hand on Ted's thigh. "Hello, Silver," she whispered. "Don't be a stranger." Ted laughed, squeezing her bosom. I just love going deep into a dark canyon, he rasped. Even with ambushes. All right, folks, I interrupted, waving the compass. When you're done with your love mine, we've got a different kind of rough ride ahead. No cell service or GPS where we're going. Once we leave camp, the phones will die, and any rock wall over 45 degrees will block GPS signals. So let's keep the VHF radios on. We can send each other obscene messages if needed. Alice smirked. Sure, Bob, and you can talk dirty about that XJ9E project you're so into. Carol smacked my hand. Say one more word, and you'll learn more than you ever wanted to know about macadamia nuts. They probably make oil for lotions, too. With jokes and laughter, we broke camp. Gear was packed up and secured tightly for the rough roads ahead. Trash was burned, and the campfire coals were doused with urine. The only things we left behind were cold ashes and disturbed dust. Responsible camping. The day was a blast. We raced along dry riverbeds and rocky trails to old mines and tunnels. We had to use chains to get over steep, muddy spots and cross broken gaps. We got filthy. Really filthy. As the day heated up, we cared less and less about clothing, sticking to sturdy shoes and towels on the car seats to soak up sweat. At every stop, we wandered around under the hot sun. Thankfully, we managed to avoid the cactus thickets. By evening, we were sweaty, dirty, and exhausted as we set up our new campsite. The camp shower came in handy, much like the tequila sunrise dessert, and of course, the loud, enthusiastic Zex after dinner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Our new camp had a clear view of another cell tower, so we called home to check in. Carol's parents handled the kids' minor issues with their usual calm, and no one really missed us. Carol and Ted connected their mini laptops to USB cellular adapters, logging into their office servers to handle emails and notes. Everything seemed calm, except for the weather forecast. We received a warning about a storm building to the southeast, a monsoon about a month early. Normally, rains don't arrive from the Gulf of Mexico until early July. In Tucson, they say, dry on the 4th, wet on the 5th, but not this year. Looks like those climate change folks were right. The forecast said the storm wouldn't hit us until late on Memorial Day, after we were already on our way home. So no big deal, right? Problems could wait until tomorrow. Oh, there's the problem! Coyotes howled in the distance, strange lights flickered, and there were even fires in the sky. Distant booms echoed. This wasn't surprising since we were camped near a military shooting range in the Chocolate Mountains, where the Navy and Marines practiced bombing and strafing. The flashing strobes, howling coyotes, and buzzing summer beetles filled the night, while pilots flew overhead. I don't know about you, but I find those flashes and rumbles exciting. Carol, too. More lights and rumbles in the sky, more howls in the distance, and even louder howls and rumbles on the ground. Dawn came earlier than yesterday. Our camp on the eastern slope of the Chuckwallis caught the first rays of sunlight over the vast Sonoran Desert, stretching over 100 kilometers to the invisible Colorado River, the western edge of Arizona. The quiet songs of desert thrushes, nightjars, and doves echoed all around. We dressed lightly in shorts and t-shirts for another breakfast of champions, packed up camp, and drove up the mountain, crossing the saddle to the western slope, navigating deep, rocky cuts beneath eerie Joshua trees and massive ironwoods, just below the pinyon pine and juniper zone. While descending a steep, sandy riverbed, I misjudged a turn. We slid and slammed into a hard block of quartz monzonite. I pressed the gas, but the car didn't budge. Oops! Ted and Alice's Sequoia was ahead, so I honked to get their attention. Ted reversed carefully, and we all got out to assess the situation. Brilliant move, genius, Ted grumbled. I had to agree. Let me check. I crawled under the car. The oil pan was fine, but the driveshaft's universal joint was broken. Damn. I crawled back out and delivered the bad news. You brought the tools and spare parts, right? Carol asked. Tools, yes. Lots of spare parts? Yes, but no spare universal joint. I could fix it if we had welding equipment, but we don't. I felt deflated. What about soldering? Alice asked. Ted, didn't you bring a soldering kit? Yeah, it's in the car, Ted said. But will solder hold? I thought for a moment. It might work for a smooth ride as long as we don't push it. No sudden starts or stops, just even pressure. But you might have to tow us back to I-10 or at least to the descent. Desert Center is only a few miles from there, and I can get a replacement part. Better grab the soldering kit, Ted. We don't want to be stuck here all day, Carol said. Yes, Your Majesty. Ted grumbled as he rummaged in the back of the Sequoia. I mumbled to myself as I pulled out the hydraulic jacks and toolbox. We jacked up the Land Cruiser, and I slid underneath. Alice handed me tools like a nurse passing surgical instruments. Removing the broken part was easier than expected, thanks to a strong, cool wind from the southeast. The wind was refreshing and damp. Oops. I climbed out, and Alice helped me up. Ted and Carol stood a short distance away, talking quietly. I glanced at the sky. Clouds were thickening. Alice followed my gaze, swallowing nervously. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. "Yeah." We reached the same conclusion. The monsoon is arriving early, isn't it? A drop of rain fell on my forehead. Another landed on Alice's glasses. She automatically wiped it off. And more is coming. Rain soaked the girls' t-shirts, and since neither was wearing a bra, things got a little more revealing. I should get back to work. Cleaning and soldering the parts didn't take long. The soldered joint hissed as it cooled under occasional raindrops. I covered it with a piece of cactus to protect it from the increasing rain. "Hey guys," I called to Ted and Carol. "Conference time is over. We need to get out of this riverbed now." They looked at me with confusion. I pointed at the dark clouds rolling in over the peaks. "This is prime flash flood territory. Ted, grab the chains. Let's head to that hill over there, about 100 yards away. We'll be safe there, but we need to move." It was a bit tricky. We chained the cars together and secured the Sequoia's front winch cable to a sturdy old ironwood tree halfway up the slope. With four-wheel drive in the winch, we managed to pull the Land Cruiser out of the riverbed, nearly reaching the anchor tree, and just in time. We heard a deep rumble like one of the planes from the day before, but much closer and louder. The ground shook, the rock walls trembled, and then chaos hit us. A roaring, surging torrent of water. Waves of muddy water carried boulders, uprooted bushes, tree limbs, cacti, and even an antelope. 90 seconds earlier, and we'd have been swept away in the flood. I looked at Carol in the passenger seat. Her usually tan complexion had gone almost ghostly pale. "Crap," she whispered, trembling. "That was close, wasn't it?" I reached out and took her hand. "Too close. But we're safe now, at least from the flood. We'll get out of here, don't worry." I gently stroked her bare thigh, trying to reassure her, though I wasn't particularly worried for myself. The radio crackled. I pressed the button. "How's it going, buddy?" Ted's voice came through, trying to sound casual, but with a hint of tension. "All good now. Thanks for the help. But we should move higher up, to that flat area, so I can get back under the car and reassemble everything. There's a big pine tree up there we can anchor to." A few minutes later, we were pulled out to safer ground. The storm clouds passed over the peaks. The wind and rain stopped, and patches of sunlight began to filter through. We stood there, momentarily stunned by the sudden calm. "Well, damn, that was something," Alice said. "So what now?" "We're not going anywhere for at least an hour," I said. "It'll give the sand time to dry out and harden enough for driving." "Ted and I were thinking about that," Carol chimed in. "Your soldered drive shaft cross might not hold up. This riverbed connects to the Red Cloud Mine Trail, right? We were thinking of driving down to Desert Center to pick up a new part. They're cheap, right? And if we're going to do it, today's the day. Tomorrow's a holiday and most places will be closed." I considered it. "That makes sense, but maybe you should take Alice with you. Why does Carol need to go?" "Because it was my idea," Carol said firmly. "Besides, I haven't ridden in the Sequoia yet." Alice glanced at Carol, then at me. "Oh, let them go," she said, sounding a little irritated, probably from the prospect of listening to more of their chatter about work and entertainment. I hesitated, but it seemed I was outnumbered. "All right, let me get the part number. Make sure you get an original part, not a cheap knockoff, and keep the radio on, just in case." We set up a tarp over the back of the Land Cruiser and unfolded the table and chairs to wait. I walked down to the riverbed to test the sand. It was compacted and felt solid. The water had stopped an hour earlier. I returned to camp. Alice and I hugged and kissed our partners before they left. "You know what this is about, right?" Alice asked, turning to me. "No, tell me," I said, half expecting something odd. "They want time alone, to have sex." I must have given her the classic open-mouthed "what" expression. "Wait, cheating on us? My Carol? Your Ted?" Alice looked sad but sure. "That's what this weekend is about. They planned it. Not the car damage, of course, but they knew they'd find an excuse to get some time alone together." "Why do you think they're planning something like that?" Ted's not great with email security. He deletes messages, empties the trash, even defragments the drive, but doesn't clean it properly. It's easy to recover. Besides being a great circuit engineer, Alice was a master of computer security and encryption. A few things he said and did made me suspicious. Hacking his laptop was easy. I'm sure there are traces on Carol's Vio too. Do you want to check? My stomach churned, not from hunger. Do I want to see proof that the woman I've loved my whole life has betrayed me? No, but I'd rather know than stay in the dark. Let's see if she left anything. Carol had taken her bag, but not her laptop. I turned it on, and Alice took over, expertly navigating the system. What's her usual password? Alice asked. She mostly uses her birth date, October 2065. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, here's her mail. Nothing out of the ordinary. Let me restore her deleted emails from the last few weeks. Tip-top. Tip-top? Yeah, there are a bunch of emails to and from Ted, but they're encrypted with a different password. Alice tried a few password cracking methods. Maybe try my birth date, I suggested. Wait, I have an idea. Alice tapped the keys again and suddenly exclaimed, Got it. Guess what password she used? Ted's birth date. She scrolled through the decrypted messages on the screen. It was all there, glowing on the LCD. Conspiracies, plans, love notes. They'd been seducing each other for weeks, and sleeping together for at least that long. There were also vague mentions of a project that could lead to legal trouble, though none of the emails contained specific details. What is this project? Alice muttered quietly, almost to herself. Let me check the My Documents folder. Type top. Nope, nothing obvious here. Where else could it be? She ran her finger along the Explorer window. Oh, wait, there's a flash drive. Let's see what's on it. A few more clicks then. Ted's password again. Yes, and then, oh crap. I moved closer to Alice, our heads nearly colliding as we leaned in to read the screen together. There it was. Ted's clients, Carol's clients, fraud plans. Plans to drain their accounts and transfer the money to offshore banks. Plans to disappear with the money outside the U.S. and abandon their families. Alice shook her head in disbelief. I knew Ted was scheming something, but I never imagined this. I've never found anything like this on his laptop. I'm sure they keep all their sensitive data on flash drives. If Carol had taken hers, we'd never have known. She looked at me seriously. As long as they kept their computers offline when using these drives and removed them before reconnecting, no amount of searching would have found this. The safest way to transfer data is still by handing someone a flash drive. A wave of paranoia washed over me. They don't actually think they can get away with this, do they? They must have some backup plan, a scapegoat. Who are they going to frame? Are we in danger? I asked, locking eyes with Alice. Do you think they'll try to set us up? Wouldn't you? I responded. Yes. The paranoia sank deep into me as Alice returned to the keyboard. I'll check the later files. Yeah, here they are. Type top. Damn, this is a setup. She pointed to the screen. They're going to funnel all the stolen money through our personal accounts, then disappear, leaving clues that make it look like we staged the fraud and eliminated our spouses when they started to suspect. They're planning to run off to Rio. We're the ones headed to prison. A whirlwind of thoughts and emotions exploded inside me. This wasn't just complicated, it was life-ruining. Want to know what went through my mind at that moment? A mix of shock, disbelief, and nausea swirled in me, as if my hopes were collapsing into a void. I glanced at Alice, searching for answers. What now? Well, I think it's safe to say our marriages are done. Kaput. What can we do? Go to the police? If Ted and Carol get arrested, they'll spend all our money on lawyers. We'll be broke. And the kids? I don't even know what would happen. I felt like the ground was giving way beneath me. Alice looked the saddest I'd ever seen her. I don't have family here like you do. No support, she said, biting her lip, lost in thought. I lifted her chin. We're engineers. Let's approach this like a problem to be solved. She nodded, though her eyes remained dark. Okay, let's break it down, I continued. First, they're planning to frame us. Divorce is inevitable. What else? If we go to the police, they'll ruin us financially. If we confront them, they'll fight us for custody, property, everything. We still lose. Alice's desperation grew. Could we shut down their business, put them out of commission? Could we? I let the thought hang in the air and Alice read my face. No, she said firmly. No violence. We can't even consider that. I sighed. I couldn't hurt Carol, no matter what she's done. I loved her too much. Alice's expression mirrored mine, torn between love and betrayal. I sighed again, a vivid image playing in my mind. Alice and me on the slope, watching the sequoia roll down the riverbed, crushing our cheating spouses. What a tragedy. But no, we couldn't do that. All right, I said, trying to remain logical. What are our immediate options? Should we report them now or wait until we get home? Should we send some kind of message to cover ourselves, maybe to Lunadyne? Something that documents what we know? Alice brightened. That's a good idea. Is there a cell tower nearby? We could call our offices. It's a holiday weekend, so the calls would go to voicemail. We can let them know what we've found, and if something happens to us, there'll be a record. I've got extra flash drives. I'll copy everything, and we'll have more evidence. Great thinking, I said, feeling a bit relieved. But we need to play it cool when they get back. Act like everything's normal for now. Yeah, but I need to make some advance calls. I'll start copying all the files. You go find a good signal. I checked the topographic map. There should be a cell tower a few hundred feet higher up, I shouted to Alice as I headed up the slope, holding my phone like a divining rod, hoping for even a single bar of signal. No luck. I climbed higher, reaching the saddle. Still nothing. Maybe I'd have better luck at the top of one side of the saddle. I climbed onto a pile of rocks towering about 25 feet above the slope. The granite boulders, some as wide as 10 feet, were dotted with prickly pear cacti growing from the cracks. Carefully, I made my way to the top and pulled out my phone. One bar, there was a signal. I shouted in triumph, but before I could savor the victory, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The pile of stones moved. The massive rocks I'd climbed decided they had a better place to be, downhill, taking me along for the ride. A strange feeling of weightlessness overtook me. The world around me went silent as I stood atop it, and then it vanished, and I fell. Not small pebbles, but huge boulders, each one larger than me and capable of crushing me in an instant, tumbled down with me. I danced down the rock pile as the boulders became my unwelcome partners. Pain surged through me. I braced for oblivion, but it didn't come. When sound returned, I heard the crashing of rocks all around. I didn't hear my ankle snap, but I sure felt it. Oh, crap, I muttered. Do you believe in miracles? I hadn't until that moment. I was alive, conscious, not crushed. Aside from a broken ankle, I was unscathed. A miracle. Alice came running up the hill to where I lay. Bobby! Oh, Bobby! She cried, collapsing beside me. Please be alive, Bobby. Please don't be dead. I turned my head to see her tear-streaked face. I'm not dead, Alice. I'm not even that hurt. My ankle's broken, I think. Just calm down. Alice clung to me, lying in the damp sand, kissing my face and sobbing. Oh, Bobby, I thought I'd lost you. You're my best friend. I can't lose you. She eventually regained her composure, sitting up and brushing the sand from her shorts and shirt. You can't stay here. I'll help you get down to the Land Cruiser. Maybe. Yes, if you can support me, I'll stand on one leg. With her help, I hopped down the hill, balancing on my good leg, my arm around Alice's shoulders. A couple of times, we almost stumbled into the prickly pear thickets. When we reached the car, I carefully sat in a folding chair, and Alice propped my legs up on another one, elevating them. It almost felt like a vacation. You can't stay here either, Alice said. I'll set up the camp and help you into the tent. You need to rest until they get back. Alice moved quickly, setting up the equipment. Soon, I was lying comfortably in the tent, my feet elevated on inflatable pads, my head near the doorway. Alice sat next to me on the ground. You're lucky, she said, eyeing my condition. Besides not being crushed into a pancake, I mean. But I remember enough first aid from my Girl Scout days. Your legs are elevated, you're not in shock, and your skin's not clammy. Just pain. She rummaged through the medical kit. Here, take these painkillers. Probably best not to mix them with tequila, she joked, handing me some pills and a bottle of Gatorade. Now we wait. Ted was a medic in the Army, so he'll know what to do when he gets back. Remember, we have to act like everything's normal, I reminded her. We waited, chatting and making plans. The sun was past its peak, and it felt like summer had arrived. Ted and Carol had been gone for 5 hours. I wonder what excuses they'll have, I mused. The radio crackled occasionally, but there was never a clear signal. Alice tried reaching them on multiple channels, but the rock canyons blocked the waves, leaving us in a dead zone. We finally heard an engine rumble as the Sequoia pulled up next to the Land Cruiser. Ted and Carol got out looking dirty and exhausted. Sorry it took so long, Ted said. We had to clear trees and debris. The winch wasn't enough, so it took a lot of work. Here come the excuses, I thought as Carol walked toward the tent. Bobby, why are you in the tent? Are you okay? She asked, concerned. I had a little accident, I said. Fell off some rocks. I think my ankle's broken. Carol turned pale and knelt beside me. "Oh God, Bobby, are you all right?" she asked, holding my head. If I were fine, I wouldn't be lying here, I thought, but instead said, "I'll live." Ted, now in medic mode, knelt beside me. "Broken, huh? Let me check." He had Alice grab the first aid kit and started checking me over. "Looks like you're stable," he said after examining me. "Your ankle's definitely broken. I'll put on an air splint for now. You'll need an x-ray soon, but you're stable." "So, what's the plan?" Carol asked. "Tow the car or take Bobby to a doctor?" "I can't walk, but I can crawl," I interrupted. "Help me fix the car, and I'll ride in the back seat." "Alice, you're better at off-road driving, right?" Carol admitted she wasn't great off-road, so Alice agreed to drive. The rain started as they helped me under the car to replace the part. Once done, Carol told Ted and Alice to step away for a bit. She crawled under the car next to me and hugged me gently. "Bobby, are you really okay? Tell me the truth," she asked, her worry seeming genuine. "I've been better, but I'll survive." "I couldn't bear to lose you," she whispered, sliding her hand down my body. She lowered my jeans slightly, saying, "I'll do anything to make you feel better." The rain picked up as they pulled me from under the car and laid me in the back seat, propping my leg up with pillows. Ted secured my leg before we set off. "Ready to go?" Carol's voice crackled on the radio. "We're good," I responded. As we drove, the rain worsened. "I can't see anything," Alice muttered. I pressed the radio. "Carol, what's ahead?" Her voice broke through. "We're nearing a side channel." Then silence. A loud crash followed. "Stop!" I yelled. Alice slammed the brakes, then jumped out of the car, returning pale and shaken. "They're gone," she sobbed. "A flash flood. The riverbeds are wiped out. There's nothing left." She broke down, her sobs shaking her body. "Oh, God, what am I going to tell the kids?" "Ted and Carol are gone. Their parents, their children." "Wait," I interrupted. "Why am I talking like they're dead? Alice, how sure are you? Try the radio again. Maybe they found a safe spot." Alice clung to hope and grabbed the radio. I tried it again. Nothing. Another attempt. Still nothing. The storm passed, the rain stopped, and the sky cleared, but I could only see from where I was lying. "Stay here," Alice said, though I didn't have a choice. She set the handbrake, jumped out, leaving the door open, and disappeared into the cool air. The key beeped nonstop while she was gone. When she returned, she said, "The road looks clear. I'll try to get us down. I'll stop when it's safe and look for the sequoia. You keep trying the walkie-talkie." "No sign of them?" I asked. She shook her head grimly and began driving slowly down the mountain. No sign of Ted or Carol. She stopped at our previous campsite where there was cell signal and dialed emergency. "When the police come, we're not mentioning Ted and Carol's plans, right?" Alice asked nervously. "Right. You might want to clear Carol's computer and hide the flash drives too. No need for a big investigation." That was exactly what I was thinking. Their fraud wasn't complete, and there was no point involving the authorities. An hour before sunset, the first helicopter arrived, followed by a Navy evac helicopter. The corpsman diagnosed me with mild shock, hypothermia, and atrial fibrillation. They loaded me into the helicopter and flew me to Eisenhower Medical Center. Alice stayed behind to deal with the Rangers and police. It was easily the worst Sunday of my life. I watched nightfall through the hospital window as they kept me under observation, more for my heart and hypothermia than my injured ankle. I worried about Alice, unable to use my phone. Guilt gnawed at me. I imagined Ted and Carol's end of lives, crushed by rocks from the flash flood. Though it wasn't my fault, I felt a heavy sense of guilt, loss, and loneliness. What would have happened if things hadn't turned out this way? What if Carol hadn't cheated, Alice hadn't discovered their plans, or I hadn't fallen, causing us to leave in the storm? What if Ted and Carol were still alive? If only. At 10 p.m., I heard a commotion outside my room. Alice burst in, barely restrained by two small nurses. "Call security if you need to, but you'll need backup to get me out," she shouted. Then saw me. She rushed over, hugging me tight. "Oh, Bobby." She finally let go, wiping her eyes. Our fingers locked together. "Any news?" I asked. She nodded, eyes filled with tears. They didn't search long. A patrol helicopter spotted the sequoia 1.5 miles away in a side channel. The car was destroyed. Ted and Carol, too. She gripped my hand hard. "They're gone, Bobby." Tears streamed down her face as we sat in silence, holding each other. A stern nurse, probably the head of the department, came in with 2 guards. We're flexible with visits in these cases, Miss Olson, but you can't treat my staff like that. You've got 5 more minutes, then my guys will escort you out. Don't waste your time." She left, but the guards stayed. "I've called everyone," Alice said. "Carol's parents are bringing the kids tomorrow. They wanted to fly tonight, but I told them no. My dad, Ted's mom, and your sister will be here too." "And you?" "I hope you're not staying here all night. I'm not that sick," I joked. "No, I got a motel down the street. I need sleep, but I'll be here in the morning. We'll figure everything out." She kissed me softly. "I've been thinking about us," I said, holding her hand. "We're great friends, but we're not soulmates or romantic partners." She nodded and squeezed my hand. "But I want us to stay friends, no matter what." She smiled. "Maybe with benefits." I grinned. "We'll see." We had emotional family meetings. The kids bounced back quicker than the adults. Life went on. The medical examiner ruled Ted and Carol's end of life's accidental. Only Alice and I knew about their betrayal. We buried them quietly and hid the flash drives, just in case. Their insurance covered our mortgage and set up college funds for our daughters. Alice and I kept working, though we didn't need to. Some of our projects even reached Mars. Ted and Carol's businesses thrived under their deputies, and Alice and I became half-owners, living comfortably. After a few months, Alice and I realized we were more than friends with benefits. The Ortegas moved into the Olsons' house, and I moved into Alice's bedroom. We got married on Halloween in a Gothic room near the Southwestern Museum in costume, and we were glowing. Alice and I don't talk much about the past, but sometimes it comes up. One night, after Zex, Alice teased, "What's next, best friend?" "Next time you'll be the showgirl and I'll be the bum," I joked. She laughed. "Or maybe pygmies and hyenas." "Why not?" After a pause, I said, "It's funny how we ended up here. I never saw this coming." "I know," Alice agreed. "You were the perfect gentleman, and I was the hard-working mom. We were on different paths. Do you think they knew we'd end up like this? Is that why they strayed? I loved Carolina so much, and I still do, just like you with Ted. But they took a wrong turn. How did that happen?" I shook my head. "Where's the justice in this?" Alice touched my lips. "It wasn't karma or fate. They were careless. That's it." My logical side accepted her words, but a part of me wasn't convinced. One last thought on prickly pear cacti, also known as Indian figs, Opuntia ficus indica. They grow in dense thickets, their flowers glowing like neon in the sunlight. They remind me of Carol's eyes the last time I saw her. I'll never forget that.